Of course, the TV series, you all know him because he's Jamie Fraser's grandfather. And what a horrible man he is. When I first started researching Lovat at the 45's life, the first thing I read was from a Victorian history book, and it said, seldom has a more terrible old man met a more deserved end. And I thought, oh, that's not very promising. So there's got to be more to it than that. But then HarperCollins, I said I'd like to call the book The Old Fox. And they said, no you don't, marketing don't like that. My book, but never mind. We're going to call him The Last Highlander, Scotland's most notorious clan chief, rebel and double agent. And that's okay too, but there are so many things about him. But nobody's born like that. He's just the second son of a second son of a chief. He's quite a long way off the top of the family tree, but a series of fortunate, for him, deaths and slippages means that he suddenly climbs to the top. He's the topmost apple of that tree, and he finds himself the heir to the chieftainship and to the titles and estates of Lovat. And he's an ambitious, well set up man, young man of 18. He's been off to Aberdeen University where he's read a general degree in Greek and Latin, and he started on a degree in civil law. Now civil law is all to do with property rights, and the reason Simon Fraser, Lovat at the 45, becomes the old fox is because of a property dispute, essentially. Because although he is the heir, the male heir, and no one doubts that, there is an heiress, a young heiress, who is the daughter of Lord Lovat, the late Lord Lovat, who's died. Now, in clanship at this time, the obvious thing you do is you marry the heiress to the leading male heir, because this is still a martial society. You're going to have to fight at some time, and it was felt that a clan should be under male control. Some clans went to such extremes, it's eye-watering. They designated all their legitimate sons their heirs, failing those legitimate sons and their brothers' illegitimate sons, and then they would consider an heiress. I mean, it really wasn't desired. I've got views on that, but then I'm 21st century feminist, so what do I know? I've also got views on that, because where I think that Diana gets a lot of things right is, you know, I've read a lot of debates about whether Claire wouldn't actually simply have been locked up for being so feisty as clearly being off her heed. But actually she wouldn't, because given that it's a martial society, half the time your fighting men are going to be called to war, either on behalf of another clan or on behalf of the national government, and in which case the women are going to be left in charge. And some of the women are left in charge for months or years on end, and very competent they are too. Nevertheless, the period we're talking about, Lovat is the male heir. No, Simon Fraser is called then, Simon Fraser of Beaufort, and little Amelia Fraser of Lovat is the heiress. Simon thinks, this is fine. What I'll do, she's a child at the time, but that's all right, we can contract in marriage, and when she's old enough we'll marry. Problem. The problem for young Simon is that there have been a series of singleton children, weak chiefs, and chiefs who die young. And what has happened in Fraser country is that the in-laws have moved in to help run the Fraser clan, which is very kind of them. Except when, for example, say a lease falls free on a farm, these managers, these in-law managers of the estate, they don't then release a farm to a Fraser, they lease it to one of their own clan. And the clans that are involved are the Mackenzies of Tarbert and the Athol Murrays, who own that beautiful castle down the road in Blair Athol. And what happens at the stage I'm talking about, which is say around 1700, is that, as Bruce Lemon, very good historian of the clan, said, Clan Fraser is on the point of going under. It is going to be torn apart by the Mackenzies and the Murrays. They are all land hungry. They can expand their clan base and their influence. And the reason you'd want to do that is a really good one. It's a very benevolent one in a way. You increase your profile with the government in Edinburgh or London, as it will be after 1707. They will give you perks, patronage, positions as sheriff officers and so on locally. You will then be able to secure your clan, and if you can secure a clan, it's likely to be more prosperous because you're not going to be disrupted and have raids and feuds the whole time. So I understand why they wanted to do it, but as somebody who has married Frasers and bred Frasers and written about them, is called the Viceroy of Scotland. So I mean, he rules Scotland for William III. And then they are civil law judges. They're lords of the Court of Session, and that deals with property disputes. And they create a kind of contract by which the young heiress Amelia Murray, yes, we understand how clanship works, she must marry the male Fraser heir. Failing this, what she could do is marry somebody else who is called Fraser. And if we can't find someone suitable, what she might do is marry anybody else as long as they take on the name of Fraser. And funnily enough, the choice they come up with is a Mackenzie, who will take on the name Mackenzie of Fraserdale. Simon objects to all of this, and if it hadn't been for him, the Frasers of Lovat would have gone under at this time. They would have been divided up and absorbed between the Murrays and the Mackenzies, and that would have been that. Sadly, Simon's course of action is he moves in and out of the law with more courage than wisdom. He forces a marriage on the dowager, Lady Lovat. The young heiress, the Athels get the way the wind is blowing, and they quickly whisk the little Lovat heiress off to Blair Athol. The dowager is left there. Simon knows her. He forces a marriage with her, which I think he's charged with something like Rapton Haim Sucken. And Haim Sucken is ravishing ladies of consequences in their property, among other things. You would break into the property first. It's a capital crime. And they charge him in Edinburgh. He's found guilty. There isn't any way he's not going to be found guilty, because he certainly has forced the marriage on her. They've taken the Dowager Lady Lovat to Blair Athol, but they can't get her to testify against him. And my view on that is that if she's caught between a rock and a hard place, because if she testifies against him, she is tainted with a very public, it's all over the newsletters, with a public charge of rape. Poor thing. She is a rape victim. If she doesn't testify against him, her brothers treat her very badly and lock her up, but she has a chance of remaining Lady Lovat and retaining her place in society. And she has my heartfelt sympathy, because circumstances plunge her into an impossible situation. Sadly, Simon is outlawed. He loses everything. The Mackenzies and Murrays quietly shuffle in and do run the Lovat estates for the next 15 years. And Simon flees to France, and this is where he begins the odyssey that makes him end up Scotland's most notorious clan chief, rebel and double agent, and the old fox and all the rest of it, and will lead to Tower Hill, because he plots with Louis XIV. He's the lace-wristed courtier of kings. He plots with Louis an invasion plan that is essentially the one that is thought of in 1743, and had Bonnie Prince Charlie actually come properly prepared, is the one that he probably would have used. He then is caught basically truckling with the English authorities, and is shocked to Louis XIV, who locks him up just to keep him out of trouble, because he is far too lively by half. But he then, in 1715, makes his peace with the new Hanoverian regime. He is a a heartfelt Jacobite. All his life he favours the House of Stuart. And I think part of it is tied up with this sense of somebody being kept out of their rightful inheritance. I mean, I think no one would argue that the Stuarts are the rightful heirs to the British thrones. It's just that politics has made it impossible for them to be there. And Simon was juggled out of his inheritance, and he very much believes in the right, in blood right. He comes home, he rules his clan with a mixture of patriarchal love and aggression. He has the power of pit and gallows over his people, and everything is set fair at last after such a struggle to get to be the chief of the